There's a group now suing Comcast and Al Sharpton. They're called the National Association of African American Owned Media. They're suing Comcast for $20 billion. They say that Comcast has practiced wide-scale discrimination, that out of the $25 billion of business that they do annually, that only $3 million of that, or even less, goes to 100% African American owned channel. And that channel is run by Paula Madison. It's called the Africa Channel. And that's an executive who was directly involved in putting together the government approval for Comcast's merger with NBC Universal in the first place. And they say that every other organization you have that has African Americans is actually a front. In fact, let me quote the organization for you. The Hollywood Reporter has a story. They say other black channels are said to be, quote, window dressing with black celebrities as fronts when they are, quote, white-owned businesses that are run by friends or family of Comcast executives. So now that's a pretty heavy charge, and you know they do have a lawsuit, so it'll be pretty easy to determine if that's true or not. Now, if it turns out that Comcast is right and no, in fact, African Americans do own it, well, we'll get to see it in court. Comcast, of course, says this is a frivolous lawsuit. They're really disappointed that they have been sued this way, and their name has been taken in vain, and all the usual things that they say when they're shocked and chagrined. Now, another portion of this lawsuit involves Al Sharpton. Hollywood Reporter says Sharpton tells us that the part that includes him is wrong, of course, and he says, quote, he welcomes the opportunity to answer the frivolous allegations and says he will be bringing counterclaims for defamation. So what does the lawsuit say about Al Sharpton, and what does he have to do with Comcast? Now, he's on MSNBC, which is now owned by Comcast. He was put in that position after the merger went through, but the lawsuit talks about how he got that job in the first place. Now, this is the interesting part. The lawsuit goes on to say that Comcast made large cash donations to obtain support for its acquisition. The money includes $3.8 million to Sharpton and his National Action Network. The money, it's charged, was meant to pay Sharpton to endorse the NBCU deal and divert attention away from discrimination. Now, Wayne Barrett has done some really interesting reporting on this in the past, and Comcast did have significant discrimination issues that had arisen. Doesn't mean that they were true, but they were issues they had to deal with, and it was a problem for the merger between Comcast and NBC Universal. The first person to jump in to say, no, there's no problems here at all, look away, was Al Sharpton. Now, out of the $3.8 million the lawsuit claims he received, some of that is the salary that he's getting as MSNBC host. Now, I don't know that that's fair to include that. He is hosting the program, and you should get paid a fee for that. Some of it went to his organization. Now, again, they'll have to suss out in court what part of this makes sense and what doesn't. And by the way, these are no lightweights. The people that are conducting this lawsuit on behalf of the plaintiffs are some of the top lawyers in Hollywood, okay? And they've represented some of the top names in Hollywood. So this is very serious allegations with some significant firepower behind them. Now, they go on to explain about the lawsuit. Despite the notoriously low ratings the Sharpton show generates, Comcast has allowed Sharpton to maintain his hosting position for more than 3 years in exchange for Sharpton's continued public support for Comcast on issues of diversity. So now, look, it must be noted at this time that if you don't know, the person Al Sharpton replaced at 6 o'clock on MSNBC was me. Now, I've never spoken poorly of Al Sharpton in that regard. It's not his choice, it's not his decision, it's management's decision, right? And what management wanted was, in my opinion, based on the conversations they had with me, was someone who would support the administration and the Democratic Party without asking too many questions. And Al Sharpton was already on the record in a 60 Minutes piece saying that he would never question the administration. So now Wayne Barrett, as I said, wrote about this in the past, that another factor might have been that Al Sharpton, rightly or wrongly, and you can have any opinion you want on it, did help Comcast with that merger significantly. So if you're MSNBC management, it's a bit of a rational decision. You've got me who, according to a speech they gave me, was causing disconcern to some people in Washington. They never clarified who it was in Washington that was unhappy with my tone, right? You move me to the weekends. You take Al Sharpton, who did your company a huge favor. You got new executives coming in above you. If you're the head of MSNBC, you got to make them happy. That's a legitimate consideration, right? You move in the guy who helped the merger. He winds up getting a good amount of money for that. And he is on the same team as you are, the team of never challenging Democrats and never challenging the president. He stated it publicly. Check, check. Now, look, again, they're going to go to court. They'll suss all this stuff out, and they'll figure it out, and we'll see who's right and who's wrong. Sharpton says it's outrageous. How dare they? Comcast says the same thing. And these guys say, well, we'll see you in court, and my guess is that we're going to make a lot of money because you did do discrimination, and you did cover it up in this way. We'll see. But I do have to add one final note, because this part I am familiar with. He says, the National Action Network, that's Sharpton's group, put out the statement. As for Reverend Sharpton's TV show ratings, the numbers are clear. Reverend Sharpton's show has the highest ratings of any 6 p.m. show in the history of the network. Well, let's find out. So, now look, you can take his last quarter, compare it to the last quarter of the previous 6 o'clock host. I invite you to do that. I want you to do that. Before the show, we got this story. I wanted to prepare it. We got the best ratings we could. I grabbed the last ratings there was for Al Sharpton, or one of our producers did. It's from Friday's show, February 20th of 2015. In adults 25 to 54, he had 83,000, not 83 people, of course, 83,000 people in that category. That's what they call the money demo. That's the one that advertisers care most about. That's adults 25 to 54 years old. P2 is all adults, basically. That's 420,000 that Al Sharpton had. Highest ratings ever at 6. Interesting. Let's take a quick look at the previous host of 6 o'clock. All right, that would be me. Right before I left on June 16th of 2011. Look at that. The general number appears to be significantly higher at 533,000, and adults 25 to 54 on that day happens to be more than twice Al Sharpton's numbers at 205,000. So, the highest numbers at 6 o'clock in history? On that one, I'm going to have to agree to disagree. And you can look up the numbers for yourselves. Look up bigger numbers if you like. I've got no problems with that. So it's an interesting story, and we'll have to see who's right and who's wrong in court, but you got to get your facts straight. I'm here to help.